Hey guys, what's up? It's week 450. Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, whatever you celebrate or don't celebrate. Have a good time anyways. We're going to hop into the reviews. Got a huge update. Still have some more stuff coming from Black Friday and stuff from overseas. Sometimes it takes a while. But the first one up is kind of a really amazing release for a movie that, is a cult film that I'm not super familiar with. It just doesn't necessarily, cross like into my huge genres growing up. So, horror, western, stuff like that. But I'm definitely interested in all aspects of cinema here. And this is Wild Style from 1982. And this is kind of a weird hybrid of movies. Now, it does have like a documentary feel, but there is a narrative storyline going through here. Deluxe edition, 4K, tons of stuff in here. This probably has more special features than any release maybe I've seen this year. There's multiple commentaries and there's interviews, a lot of short interviews with tons of the key players involved with this. So this one is an oddity, and it's definitely one of these movies where if you just put it on, just watching it on TV and you didn't have any context, you'd be like, oh, well, this is just kind of an odd movie, kind of a story that's not super focused, but it does seem to be kind of a film that definitely captures a time and a place. And when it comes to New York films, this is a New York film, that's kind of one of the highlights of the New York kind of, location. People love it. People are obsessed with it, especially when we're talking about the 80s. So this is kind of two things that were kind of coming to fruition. They were before this, but they were kind of hitting their first peak or their kind of mainstream exposure in graffiti and hip hop. So there's tons of these kind of pioneers from those kind of two aspects in this, and they kind of cross, I don't want to say pollinate, but they definitely mix and bring in all the characters, kind of making this script, this loose kind of script, to somehow bring everything together. So we have this big kind of, concert thrown out with all these up-and-comer kind of hip-hops that are from the streets and stuff, and we have the graffiti artists there to make kind of this giant mural on the graffiti. But we kind of are introduced to who was very, kind of a, I don't want to say infamous graffiti artist because they kind of like to keep their, identity low at the time, but kind of a very popular graffiti artist who is known, who is playing this character, I think was it Loco or something along those lines. He's having kind of relationship kind of problems with this young woman that he is also a graffiti artist. And it's just kind of him kind of tagging and doing things like that, making these murals. And he has this kind of big speech about this big group of people that are being paid to like make murals. And he's like, I don't really understand that. That's kind of this idea that you have to have the fear of being caught, that risk taking within it to actually kind of amount to it, to understand it, to grasp it, which I think is kind of an interesting concept. But I kind of do understand that, that idea that that you're actually breaking the law to put your art out there, that your art or your message or, they can't really silence you, and I think that probably comes later with, in a way that these people move into these places and they just kind of displace people and stuff. I wouldn't say like gentrification or something along those lines at this point in 82, but I don't know the history of the New York housing department, but I know that New York was kind of always portrayed as like a sleazy cesspool in films and everything like that, but you're kind of getting a real kind of look at New York, at least in the structures and graffiti and things of that nature. The acting's not necessarily amazing because most of the people in here aren't actors first. They're hip-hop artists or, graffiti artists and that. So, the story structure is a little loose. There's tons and tons of characters. There's kind of a really kind of poignant, scary moment where they're almost kind of killed on the streets. And there's a whole reporter kind of angle here to document it. The music is really good. There's even like some Blondie and some bigger, names in there, as well as a bunch of hip-hop artists and stuff. But there's some fun moments where these two hip-hop kind of troops are playing basketball and they kind of have these bounce-offs and everything like that, which I thought was interesting. I wouldn't call it an anticlimactic ending, but the ending kind of just is an oddity. Like it's kind of I guess a celebration of all these things kind of coming together for the main character, kind of understanding some things and everything, and I think it's pretty interesting. It's not like my number one genre, but it's definitely an interesting thing here. And the story behind it is actually more kind of interesting to me, just the idea of all these people coming together from these different walks, and there's tons of features on here, so bear with me. So the 4K is on its own disc with two special features from 16 millimeter negatives here, and the commentaries on there are brand new commentary Jeff Chairman Mao and Andrew Monk One Mason, and then we have the legacy commentary featuring director Charlie Odhern and Fab Five Freddy Brathwaite, and Down by Law creating the music of Wild Style, brand new interview with Charlie Adhere, Chris Stern, and Fab Five Freddy Brathwaite, and the tons of special features on here on the second disc are the origin story, and it's an interview with the main graffiti artist in there, Fred Bathwaite, and studio benchmark interview with the graffiti artist again, archival footage from Wildside 1983 Japanese tour. That's a nice, interesting story how they talk about how they kind of brought hip hop to Japan with this movie and with that tour and all that kind of stuff like that. 2-panel discussion and footage from Wildside 40 exposition. I cannot say that right now. Geez, sometimes I get like that expedition. Tongue-tied dummy here. Then we have ZDF TV Wild Style 30th Anniversary Featurette, Ramazzi and the Battle Station Featurettes from the Wild Side 20th, 25th, and 30th Anniversary shows, Smith Projects Gym 77 Archival Featurettes and interviews from players and performers of Wild Style, Outtake, Subway, Rap Music Video 2025 Restoration and Theatrical Trailers, Limited Edition CD, exclusive new Wild Style Mega Mix by Bombay, what is that, Yoran Bombay, original radio spots by Fab Freddy 5 and the Queen Lisa Lee, rare alternate mixes of Subway rap and Wild Style theme, rare audio outtakes from the film and soundtrack, rare 1983 radio interview with Charlie Ed Hearn. So all these features, all these people, some range from like 30-40 minutes, some are like 5-6 minutes. They went all out on this. So I mean, if you're a fan of it or you're interested in it, they talk about the style and how this kind of graffiti and the things that people were wearing changed everything, and how, you know, there was different kind of brands and stuff, and then like somebody would wear the brand and it would change kind of the entire product and all that kind of stuff like that. So if you're interested in early hip-hop or graffiti or New York or stuff, I definitely would recommend this one. It looks really good and sounds good. It's just kind of an odd film. It's definitely, you know, stands on its own, kind of a weird mixture of a documentary and I guess slice of life, or kind of like focusing on this kind of a, you know, small little group of people that obviously was going to be much bigger later down the line. So check it out. The next one here is from 88 Films, and this is the Saga of the Phoenix, directed by Lam Nichoi, who did The Seventh Curse. He did The Cat. He did Her Vengeance. He did The Story of Ricky. He's, you know, not as prolific as I think most people would like him to be, but he directed a handful, maybe a dozen films, and they're all pretty exceptional and crazy and wild. And this one here is actually a sequel to The Peacock King, which came out the year previous. This is 89. Peacock King came out in 88. So he directed the sequel with another director who's more kind of involved with kid fare, and they're kind of a mixture of these two things, you know, the kind of high-paced, big, crazy action and monster special effects mixed with this kind of kid stuff, and you definitely could tell it's a kind of a director pair here. The one thing that's kind of odd about this movie at the same time is it's kind of like a Japanese Hong Kong kind of connection, similar to like The Cat from 91 that they put out, 88 Films, which had their Japanese version. So it has like Japanese money in it as well. The Peacock King actually supposedly had more Japanese money in it too. 88 Films put that out in the UK, but it's not had a United States Blu-ray release just yet. Hopefully we can keep our fingers crossed for the Peacock King. But this stars Gloria Yip from The Cat and Yun Biao from numerous Hong Kong movies, including one that I'll be talking about, Shanghai this week, and last week he was in Rosa. Just one of the kind of all-time kind of fun martial artist kind of actors from Hong Kong. So the Saga of the Phoenix is you know, this is an odd kind of film. It opens up with an amazing scene here, and you can definitely tell it is a sequel. So if you haven't seen the first one, you might be a little lost, a little disconnected from it. And I actually have never seen the sequel. I wanted to get to this one because the United States release. So, and I was watching it, I was like, oh man, I think this is a sequel. I definitely knew of Peacock King. I didn't know how this and Saga of the Phoenix were exactly related. So I was like, oh shit, I guess I'm going to be a little lost. But I kind of caught up pretty quickly. I guess they did some recasting according to the commentary by Frank and his commentary partner here. I want to make sure I get that, and F.J. DeSanto. So they did some recasting and whatnot, which is kind of obvious. You could tell Yun Biao was not supposed to be in this movie for a very long period. He kind of is written off for a huge chunk of the movie, which is unfortunate. But this one follows the actual, I guess, the villain from the first film, and she's trying to kind of turn a little human, and they basically grant her, after she turns good, grant her 7 days on Earth to live before she's kind of gonna have to go back to where she came from or die is more like it. And they want to keep her away from the evil that is down below, because through her they can kind of resurrect more monsters and eventually take over the world. A big huge chunk of this film is kind of hijinks that her she calls her Tricky, he calls him Tricky Ghost, which I think is its general name is Genie, calls him a Tricky Ghost, which is a small little imp character like a gremlin or whatnot, and a lot of times he's stop motion, a lot of times he's a puppet. He's really adorable. The special effects on him are really great. In fact, the special effects are in the film. There's not that many except the little creature, but when they're there, I mean, there's a lot, but they're only in certain parts of the movie. But when they're there, they're exceptional, which you would expect. When the action's done well, when the action's filmed, it's done well and whatnot. And this does remind me of the latter day Shaw Brothers from the early 80s, like the crazy wuxia fantasy movies like Buddha's Palm or something, but not quite as, it definitely has more of that, I guess you'd say, newer kind of frame on it. Doesn't have the classic Shaw feel to it, but it does have the same kind of elements and everything like that. This one overall is not Lam Choi's best film. I think it's probably his weakest effort, but that doesn't mean anything considering he's probably one of the best directors with just creating good movies and rarely makes a bad film, and I don't think this is a bad film at all. I thought that The Little Creature was really excellent. I thought that some of the comedy was pretty well done and funny and goofy, and when the thing does pick up, there's plenty of special effects that are excellent and fight scenes, and it turns kind of into like the cat kind of end fight scene where the main bad guy kind of turns into this hybrid kind of zoonoid / very Japanese creature, and you could tell these are kind of Japanese inspired. It's actually from a Japanese manga, and you could definitely tell. And there's a handful of movies that had that kind of inspired by Japanese manga but made into a Hong Kong product. The Cat is another one, and this has a lot of the same kind of vibes as The Cat, except I don't think it's quite as action packed or as good as The Cat. It doesn't have the quite show stopping scenes that The Cat does in the beginning and the end of the film, but it does have a couple, and it does have some features as well, so we'll go over that. 40-page illustrated perfect bound book featuring what is that? Kaijakawa, Legend of Asura, Japanese cover art with brand new essays by Andrew Heskins and David West. That is the Japanese manga title, I believe, the Asura. And then we also have we have it in Cantonese, and we have one commentary, audio commentary by Hong Kong cinema experts Frank Jin and J. DeSanto, alternate Japanese footage, Saga Golden Harvest, The International Connection. Albert Lee discusses Golden Harvest strategy of distribution overseas, which is a big thing that Shaw Brothers would do, but they're more so like Taiwan and China and stuff. They weren't making the money directly in Hong Kong, so they talk a little bit about the Japanese connection and all that kind of thing and putting the money in and whatnot. But I thought this was a really fun movie, and this is more of a kid's film. So be warned, there are some scary moments. It's nothing too perverse in here. There's, of course, kind of a perverted little character, but it doesn't go anything extreme in that aspect. Great release, nice hard box here. A lot of fun, wild, kind of zany kind of characters. And, oh, geez, I have to mention, who was it? Hanzo the Racer, I believe, is, I didn't recognize him in the commentary. Is kind of like this kind of guy here. I'm not looking for like Japanese amazing character actors when I'm watching a Hong Kong film, so the idea that a couple more popping up in here was kind of surprising. But yeah, so it's got a really good cast, and Yun Biao, the more I see him, the more I like him, which is kind of the disappointment that he's not in this that much. But great release from 88 Films. Hopefully they get the Peacock King release stateside, or somebody does. I'd like to see a nice cleaned up version of it, or maybe I'll just import it down the line from 88 Films. We have one from Visual Vengeance, which they haven't had one out in a while. This is actually really fun and great to see them put out another movie, and this is one that I am pretty familiar with. Ozone, Attack of the Redneck Mutants, not to be confused with Ozone from J.R. Bookwalter, made in like 94 or anything of that nature. But this one here was kind of a brother-sister piece with Abomination, also came out in 86, and they already had put out the Abomination. And these were two like mid-80s Super 8 kind of movies, dirt cheap, low-budget movies made in the South, I believe Texas, if I'm not mistaken. I listened to the commentaries, so let's see if I can remember. But Abomination definitely got more flair. It has more of a surreal kind of artsy, intelligent, I guess, take to it, and I love the Abomination, and I'd seen that one numerous times. Kind of, even when I started this channel, that was one of the first movies I saw. And I had the kind of original import DVD, and then I had the remastered double disc that they put out, released at Cinema Wasteland probably 12 years ago. But the Ozone, Attack of the Redneck Mutants, was one that kind of, I've only seen bits and pieces of. I actually saw part of the screening at Cinema Wasteland. But watching this one was kind of an odd one because it's polar opposite. I mean, same producer, same group of people making the movie, but it's a different director. So the approach was a little bit different here. I think it's Brett McCormick who is it Brett McCormick direct this this one. If it's Brett McCormick, he did like Replicator, which Visual Vengeance also put out. Ridiculous movie, which was one of the ones I covered early on in my YouTube career. But yeah, so here we go here. Attack of the Redneck Mutants. I'm a huge zombie fan. This is more kind of in the aspect of zombies. This came out before Redneck Zombies, which was like 87, 88, which is one of my all-time favorite SOV kind of goofy, weird, hilarious movies. And this has the kind of same vibe as something like Dead Next Door, which was the most expensive Super 8 movie at the time. And Redneck Zombies. Now, I don't think those are two of my all-time favorites, so I don't want to put it in the same league as those. The one problem with Ozone Attack of the Redneck Mutants that I did have, besides the ridiculous ADR, which I remember the director making a comment on at Cinema Wasteland that the ADR was a little bit overdone into a comic effect, but the movie has like definitely comic feel to it, is the pacing. In the very beginning of this film, we are introduced to kind of the characters down south, and they stay with them for a little bit, but then we are like kind of see how they turn, and that it just seems to go on forever and ever. And the movie is not a long runtime, but that stuff does seem like it's paced very poorly. And I know, understand low budget movies, there's a lot of time there's air and stuff, especially in SOV movies because the way they had to edit tape to tape and stuff like that. But this one, it's just, I think that there's a lot of air and a lot of scenes that go on way too long, especially like a picnic that's forced in there. But saying that, that's kind of my nitpicks of the movie. It follows kind of a character who's his father is directly involved with something with the environment, kind of fucking it up, and we have this kind of, I think she's like an environmental reporter, something along that. I can't remember exactly what she's doing, but she kind of pairs up with him and tries to survive through this thing while they pair up with a pair of kind of local rednecks, one of which who's a big jerk, and his mother, who's also a big jerk, and there's kind of stereotypical ridiculous characters, something that you may see in Redneck Zombies, for example. But what ends up happening is these two kind of try to survive while an occasional nasty mutant chases them or jumps on their car. The one thing that this thing really has going for it is the ultimate gross out movie. It's a gore film, so when the zombies turn, they're puking up pudding and gross, and they have this nasty, gnarly face, and the kind of grody look of Super 8 works well. I mean, this has not been like remastered from the actual film footage. It's probably lost. This is a tape master, but it's really kind of nasty looking kind of mutants here. And there's some scenes that just go completely over the top. There is somebody that's killed in a bathtub that's from this character that's kind of introduced and brought back later at the end of the film, and it's got to be one of the most nasty, grueling scenes. And in fact, the knocking at the door, when the door's being bashed into that scene, it kind of cuts to the outside, and the sound effects in that scene and everything, really, it's kind of like you're watching a completely different movie where it's actually kind of horrifying. There is some implied animal cruelty, but the commentary says that, the goldfish died of natural causes. They actually didn't kill the goldfish for the movie, and the chicken wasn't hurt and all that kind of stuff. So if people are worried about that kind of deal, listen to the commentary and check it out. There's tons of features on here. And it was really nice to see this one get a wide release. I was holding out when they put Abomination out. It's like, hope they do Ozone, Attack of the Redneck Mutants, too, because it's a wild, weird, goofy movie, an oddity of a film. I'm not sure if I absolutely love it, but I definitely am glad I watched it. So we have new director, approved SD master from the original tape, commentary with producer Brett McCormick, that's the producer, sorry about that, and star Blue Thompson. McCormick, I think, directed Abomination and Replicator. That sounds about right. Commentary with Sam Panico, BS and Movies, and Bill Van Ryn of the Drive-In Asylum. Listen to both the commentaries, one of which they're both good. They talk about making the movie and whatnot, and I do think that they both kind of talk about how the actor and the producer say they really don't want to make movies anymore. It's like, it's just for a young man's kind of game and whatnot. Then we have actress Blue Thompson interview, Ozone Abomination location visit, deleted scenes, Ozone outtakes, Ozone special effects outtakes, Mother video, original VHS intros reel. And the Mother video was kind of a really niche, or like, I don't say niche because it's not like a cult following, but it was just a really low budget kind of video label, and they're very collectible at this point. So director Matt DeLevin, Cinema Wasteland interview, and it has my buddy Art Ediger on the panel there. Director Matt Devlin, producer trailer reel, short films Babies, actress Brandon Dow acting reel, director Mark Pirro, Ozone interview. He talks about kind of hooking up with them and how all these people really didn't exactly know each other until eventually they did. He tells a story of that and whatnot. Mark Pirro, of course, directed Polish Vampire in Burbank, and Curse of the Queer Wolf and stuff like that. Archival Public Access TV Review, Hollywood Unseen, Let's Watch Movies Podcast, Matt Devlin Interview, Ozone, Image Gallery, Tabloid Trailer, which is a film that these people made before, Visual Vengeance Trailer, Stick Your Own VHS Sticker Set, Reversible Sleeve, featuring original VHS artwork, folded mini poster, optional English subtitles. So if you're looking for some of the cast of Abomination in another weird, gory, very regional, weird movie, then check this one out. I would recommend it if you're a fan. You know exactly. If you're a fan of Saturn's Core, Visual Vengeance stuff, this is definitely going to be, or gore films. This is a good gore film, kind of maybe one that's been underseen, and it was always been hard to find, but finally it's getting a wide release. That's pretty cool. All right, the next one from Visual Vengeance here is A Violent New Breed. A wild cover. It looks like one of those African kind of crazy covers that they do. But yeah, this one is a Todd Sheets film from Kansas City, Missouri. Big indie director, one of, I guess, the pioneers of that kind of time of independent cinemas, along with people like, J.R. Bookwalter and Tim Ritter. They're a little over that time stuff, starting in the 80s and making these movies throughout the 90s and everything like that. He's definitely a hero of that kind of world. But Violent New Breed here, very cool cover art here from 1997. I think it got its release date here. And here's my old VHS from Eaglewood Entertainment here. Modern Horror volume. There we go. The Violent New Breed. I had a couple of these, and I actually might have bought one of these. I had a bunch of, like 3 or 4 of them, and I bought one of them from Todd Sheets at Cinema Wasteland. Super sweet guy. I only got the small interaction with him. Still making movies to this day. And the good thing about Todd Sheets is a lot of his movies have improved massively when he had the budgets and everything like that. So he started off really, really young, making movies like Zombie Rampage and Zombie Bloodbath and whatnot, just gore films. And he was always crazy about the gore films, and he's making them in, Kansas City, Missouri. And always used a lot of the same people and whatnot. So Violent New Breed was one where he mentions in the special features, listen to all the commentaries, today at work, and he mentions that, it's the first time I had any money to make a movie. And you wonder if it's all like $20,000-$30,000 after watching this movie. And it's $35,000 to $5,000 is his estimate. He's like, it's the only time I ever had some money. And you're like, that's it. And for a $5,000 movie shot on Super VHS, with this many players and this many actors and everything like that, it is completely insane. So I hats off to Todd Sheets. The thing about Todd Sheets is his movies, they're not always the best made, and that's due to the budget. The acting is not always the best. The sound, some of the shots aren't. But they're always on SOV. And the budget constraints really hold him back. It's never his ambition. It's never his story. So Violent New Breed, which is funny because this was released along with the Visual Vengeance, at the same time, and I'm covering that one here. It has a lot of similarities, not to Ozone Attack of the Redneck Mutants, but to J.R. Bookwalter's Ozone. And he mentions talking to J.R. Bookwalter and having him help him out and just like talking shop and stuff like that in the commentaries, from what I imagine. And all that kind of stuff. And these movies both have very similar plots. They both have these kind of weird, crazy worlds that are ravaged by drugs. Both different reasons why, but I've always been a huge fan of J.R. Bookwalter, especially Ozone is one of his best, and it's one of my favorites. It's a super ambitious film. This was made a few years previous. But this one here is also incredibly ambitious. What we have here is what seems to be a down-on-his-luck guy who's getting a bartender gig. He's having kind of these horrible nightmares, and he's kind of like a loser, I guess you'd say. He's kind of divorced. He's losing custody of his daughter and whatnot. But then come to find out when he kind of goes to this bar, which is a really weird place, he's actually a secret kind of agent, a special kind of cop that's supposed to infiltrate and find these half-breed demon things where are taking over the world and whatnot. There's this whole giant gang led by these kind of this weird guy Osmodeus and his henchman, who's the guy from Zombie Bloodbath 1 and 2. He's an over-the-top actor in all his movies. He's a fun character. So it's up to him to kind of stop them, but this movie does throw some curveballs. It's definitely an epic runtime. Now, the acting is not great, ranging in different quality and different things like that, and it does pack in a lot of special effects, a lot of characters, and a lot of gore in the runtime. So it's not a lazy movie at all. It has a decent amount of locations, and it's definitely a step up when you compare it to stuff like Zombie Bloodbath, even though that had a lot of extras too. It's just the ambition in this one is definitely to be admired. And when you watch some of his other films, like I always mix up the title, House of Forbidden Secrets, and he had another one, Dreaming Neon Purple, and I always fuck it up because I always say Dreaming Purple Neon, but I think it's Dreaming Neon Purple, which are both both really kind of big, ambitious, fun as low budget films that are more modern. But yeah, so this one is one that I watching this I was impressed with it, and you know, like, warts and all, and I don't want to. He definitely wins you over. Like, when you listen to the Todd Sheets talk about it and whatnot, it's, I don't want to say this, but there's a lot of lazy independent movies made now. And there was then too. And Todd Sheets has never been lazy. When they tell you it's $5,000, your jaw kind of drops to the ground. I would have guessed 10, 15, 20 grand on this one. But the story is wild. Like I said, these kind of demons are trying to overtake the world through this drug called Rapture, where the drug is produced by these little slug-like fucking creatures. So we got all that element too. Like, it's kind of like a Dune story and whatnot. And it's up to this cop to try to stop it, and his partner and his daughter and a bunch of other people to get involved. It does, of course, I kind of buried the lead here. It has Rudy Ray Moore from the Dolomite movies in here, and like a 15-minute cameo at the very end. Fun role, silly role, and yeah, the movie goes really biblical too. It has a lot of religious kind of stuff in there, and kind of angels and demons and some cool special effects that are definitely inspired by stuff like The Thing or Lovecraftian and whatnot. But if you're a fan of low budget film and you've never seen Violent New Breed, I'd recommend it. So, as far as the features are concerned, there's a handful and tons of different versions too. Because, you know, when sometimes they remaster a lot of these SOVs and the director wants to, edit them like, you know, how he would have back then. Like Hugh Gallagher cut out a lot of gorgasm and made it more fast paced and everything like that, because that might have been issues with the rights and everything like that. But it is always kind of like you always want them to include both versions, right? And this one has every version of the movie ever, I'd imagine. So we have new director approved remastered SD master version from the original tape element, original DVD version, original R-rated version is aired on the movie channel, original VHS version, 3 commentary tracks. One is on the new version, and then we have 2 with there's a fan of the kind of fan commentary or expert commentary. This guy goes in depth and gives it the kind of treatment of a big movie, breaking down actors and people like that and saying what he can about it, and also comparing it to other things. And then we have, of course, Todd Sheets is on one of the commentaries. I can't think of all the commentaries. I've listened to a lot of Violent New Breed today at work. Interview with actor Jerry Angel and director Todd Sheets. That's fun. These guys talk about how they met, being horror fans in this small town, like, kind of area where there's not that many horror fans, renting Herschel Gordon Lewis movies and talking about it. Todd Sheets working with Rudy Ray Moore. Behind the scenes documentary, Nighthawk Cinema Screening, Q&A 2023. Blooper reel, behind the scenes image gallery, original local Kansas news coverage. That's always fun to see that kind of stuff. Uncut strip club sequence, so you know there'll be tatas, because there's nudity already in the film. And this one, I think, doesn't have the most nudity. I know, no, because House of Forbidden Secrets and all those new ones, it just has a lot of nudity in it. Short film, Fist of the Undead, original trailer, Visual Vengeance trailers, booklet with liner notes by Tony Strauss of Wang Chop Magazine, stick your own VHS sticker set, reversible sleeve, original VHS art, folded mini poster of the original Ghana, art by Heavy J, optional English subtitles, region free here, damn near 2 hours in every version. Just a wild, weird movie. Some of the actors I think are better than others, and they have a lot of fun. But there's a couple weird moments in here where the bad guys I do think are kind of chewing the scenery in a good way. But yeah, check out Violent New Breed if you haven't seen it. Visual Vengeance. I do like their line. And I've got them all. I've covered all of them, I think, on my channel. And Saturn's Core is a line that I kept up mostly with. I think I dropped out on a couple of them, unfortunately. But, money gets tight sometimes. And sometimes sometimes you get stuff to review. Sometimes you buy it and whatnot. But the Visual Vengeance stuff I've been keeping up on, and I've been enjoying what they're putting out so far. Not all of them are winners for me, but I kind of love that time frame. I have a special kind of closeness to a lot of those movies. So, and Todd Sheets is one of those guys that I grew up really young, seeing some of his movies super young, like 12, 13 years old, like Zombie Bloodbath 1 and 2, and I've always kept him in mind and collected a handful of his films here and there. And I haven't seen as many as I should, though. I do have a few up there. What else do I have up there? I do have Dead Things and The Shivers and Zombie Bloodbath 1 and 2 on VHS and Goblin somewhere. But just kind of a icon in the independendent horror film world, and deserved more recognition. And is just genuinely overall a genuine sweet guy, and there's not many of those, I guess, in the indie world. There is, probably, to be honest, but he's one of the good guys from all the interviews and stuff I've seen of him and things that people say. Okay, we're going to dive into the triple threat, 3 films with Sammo Hung here, and we're going to start with the Manchu Boxer, which is kind of a traditional kind of movie you'd expect from that time, from the early 70s here. Golden Harvest logo here. Kind of a low-budget one, I would say, more so. It reminds me of kind of the early Jimmy Wang Yu stuff when he kind of branched away from Shaw Brothers, but not as kind of, I guess, more mainstream. Probably a little bit more hidden than that here. Sammo Hung's role in this film is small. He plays kind of a hired Japanese kind of fighter to kind of beat up all these fighters and kill them so they can enter this tournament. So what we have here is this martial artist who comes from a pretty prominent family, and he ends up defending himself, and he goes overboard and he kills this guy. His father disowns him, and he kind of goes to the high road and starts walking away, kind of disowned from his family, and just wants to find his own way, because kind of a traveling wanderer kind of wandering character. You know the character type in here. So he ends up at this small town, and he actually meets a guy in the road that tries to rob him, and this guy dies, and he tells his story and whatnot, and he starts to feel sad for him, so he goes and tracks this guy's family down. He decides to tell a white lie to help them. I owed your father money. So he ends up definitely getting involved with the daughter and starting to have this kind of relationship while he starts working for kind of this big, this company to build this kind of big kind of, I guess you'd say, like outside fighting ring. So he's building this outside fighting ring, and there's going to be this giant tournament that's going to take place in this town, and the kind of owner or the rich person of the town wants to win it so he can have political influence, and that's kind of what's going on here. But our guy here has made a promise to his father that he would never fight again, he would never raise his arms in anger, so he does not want to fight no matter who approaches him and whatnot, and to the point where he almost turns incredibly cowardly, and we have another heroic character who's going to enter the tournament, come in, and he ends up standing up for this small town, and bad things happen. But, of course, you know how the story's going to go. We're going to have the final showdown, and our hero is going to partake in the tournament. I won't spoil anything there. Sammo Hung is decent in this one. He's fun. He's young. He's not amazing or super memorable like the other films in the set here, but it is nice to see him early on and whatnot. There's kind of a cool fight scene at the very end between, I don't want to spoil that either, man, but there's a kind of a dual pair of people fighting him at the one point. But this one stands out to me because a lot of times, Hong Kong movies or whatnot will be filmed in Taiwan or somewhere around there, or they'll go to East Asia for like the horror films and that kind of, xenophobia stuff. Oh, they have all these curses and whatnot deal. But this one, it's cold. It's bitterly cold, and I was like, oh, this is definitely not shot in Hong Kong. This is definitely shot somewhere else in kind of a different area here where you see snow, and you can see their breath. Even in the places they're at, you could see their breath. But overall, I thought the Manchu, Boxer was decent. I didn't think it was amazing. I thought it was pretty standard, kind of, this kind of time frame, kind of action, kind of martial arts film. But they do use Once Upon a Time in the West music, which is a lot of these movies do that. But I want to definitely check. I'm looking at the wrong thing. I'm looking at my outline. I want to look at the special features on here. We do have extended versions of the Manchu Boxer on here, and we also have a commentary, I want to make sure I get that, with Frank Jin and Michael Worth. Michael Worth's on there. They talk a lot about the fighting and whatnot and things of that nature, and they mention, hey, we couldn't find some of these people out. We couldn't find out who this person was and stuff. So this movie, the Manchu Boxer, doesn't seem like it's a super big mainstream kind of movie, but overall it's pretty decent and enjoyable. Kind of standard martial arts film of the time if you're into them. Okay, the next one in the set here is, of course, Paper Marriage, and Sammo Hung stars in this one. It's definitely the most comedic of the 3 in the set here, and Sammo Hung is absolutely hilarious, and this is actually from Sammo's company, the company that he was making films for, distributing by Golden Harvest, so he definitely had more freedom. He kind of branched off and would do his own like sub-label in Golden Harvest, from my understanding, so this is one of those boho films or whatnot, but this one is absolute blast. So he is kind of a gambling junkie. He has to gamble. He owes a bunch of fucking money. It's such a standard trope here, and there's loan sharks and gambling sharks chasing him, all this kind of stuff like that chasing him. So he decides he can easily make some money by doing a paper marriage. So somebody from Hong Kong, or is it China? I'm not necessarily sure where she's from, probably China, wants to come to the United States, even though this movie's filmed in Canada, and marry him, and then she can eventually leave him and go be with her boyfriend who's located in that area here. But she has to marry for 2 years, and it's Maggie Chen, who's in a bunch of the Wong Kar-wai films, so she's kind of a bigger actress and went on to do a lot of kind of more popular films, although some of these are probably around the same time, to be honest. But what happens is comedy of errors ensues. Sammo Hung's not a great guy. He's kind of a womanizer. He's an asshole. He has an ex-wife that he has a shaky relationship with. But Sammo Hung decides the only way he can make money here, besides doing these funny, weird experiments where he's tortured for laughs, is kind of enter the fighting pool again and start these kind of fights and everything like that. And he's just overweight, but Sammo Hung is incredibly agile still, and he has a couple fun fights. One of which is actually his ex-wife's boyfriend, who's actually a real Thai boxer in real life, and that fight scene is actually pretty fun. But what happens is, out of the left field, the last act of this movie, that's probably why the ending is the way it is, and not an insult. I'm just saying, kind of the very very end. We have this kind of criminal element kind of add in, and Dick Way comes in, who's in last week's Rosa, who plays a very similar character in the same white suit that he was in Rosa. So he pops in here, and they end up stealing this bag of money, and after they kind of start to form and understand each other, and they're on the run, and Dick Way and a bunch of goons are chasing them, and the whole thing ends in this water park, this indoor water park, and it's amazing fight choreographing, and just a lot of laughs, and just intense, and just really entertaining stuff here. I thought that Paper Marriage was great. I love Sammo Hung. I think he's absolutely funny, even though he's a dick in this movie. Maggie Chen is also great. So overall, I thought this one was a pleasant surprise and completely different from the Manchu Boxer. So I would recommend Paper Marriage for sure. We have dubs on the theatrical versions of Manchu. Okay, sorry about that. All this here. And then we also have, trying to find the commentary here. We do have a commentary on Paper Marriage by genre cinema experts already Venema and Dominique Ting. Good commentary as well. I love Arnie Venema's knowledge on this stuff. He's very into it, and it's not our Mike Leader like it normally is, but still a very good commentary full of knowledge and interesting stuff here. And they do mention that that's a stuntman right there, or this water park does not look very safe, and I was like, yes, I agree completely on that. But if you've never seen Paper Marriage, I would recommend it. Pretty good title. I think better than the Manchu Boxer, but completely different at the same time. Okay, the next and final film in the Triple Threat 3 films with Sammo Hung is Shanghai, Shanghai. And this is definitely the cream of the crop in the set. I think it's exceptional. So this has Sammo Hung, Yuen Biao in here, and a bunch of other people. Lo Wei has a good role in here, kind of late for Lo Wei, and so used to see him in the Shaw films, but this is after that and everything like that. So this takes place in 1931, right before the Japanese invasion of China. Also, the Manchu Boxer takes place around that time as well. So it's a very odd time. There's a lot of movies that kind of portray that, like there you see movies like the Nanking Massacre or 1941, Hong Kong 41. So you see like a lot of kind of stuff like that, movies and whatnot. But this one here, it takes place right before it. So you have a lot of kind of corrupt individuals here. You have a lot of players in here and a lot of spying and people not who they say they are. And it has a comedy kind of fun adventure flair to it as well. Sammo Hung is basically a big kind of crime boss that, he has this great speech throughout the movie that kind of sums up his character. He says, why get involved in a revolution? People are going to die. Blood's going to be everywhere. Why not just kind of go in and benefit yourself and do things that are going to constantly benefit you? And that kind of sums up his character. He's kind of very ominous character, good character. And Yuen Biao is the son of a general, the younger brother of a general who's also a major player into the film that's working for with the British Army and everything like that. At the same time, Yuen Biao kind of comes to this place to meet his brother, and he ends up getting involved with this criminal element, but in kind of a good way, because he actually kills an old crime boss that's kind of a horrible person, with the help of an acrobatic troupe. Yeah, acrobat troupe. So that's kind of where we're at here. And the acrobat troupe becomes kind of like his gang, and they're all buddies and everything like that. So you get a lot of high-flying stunts, a lot of machine gun shootout play. There's a great kind of shootout over this briefcase of money, this bag of money in the very beginning, which involves Lo Wei. So it's just a really stylish movie and a great sets and looks beautiful. This is a big movie, and I was really impressed with it. Great action, great adventure, great acting, great showdowns. Highly recommend Shanghai, Shanghai if you haven't seen it. Also, just fun kind of little historical context in here, and all these other people. There's, of course, intrigue and love, and these love triangles, and people aren't who they say they are, and they're kind of revealed. But you know what? This is a movie where it ends. You're like, yes, that's how it, kind of the feel-good kind of adventure film that you're looking for. It reminds me of something like Jackie Chan would do, like Project A or something along those lines. But really recommend Shanghai, and I think most people will enjoy this one for sure. As far as features on this one, we have a commentary with Frank Jin and producer F.D. DeSanto again, Happily Ever After, new interview with Paper Marriage director Alpha Chang, and then, of course, we have Plus a collector's book featuring new writings on Sammo Hung by film critic and writer James Oliver. So, 3 interesting movies from Sammo's career. He plays, kind of a small bit role as a goon, and then he plays the comic lead, and then he plays the villain. All 3 he's really good at, I think, in particular. He's always been great at comedy, and in fact, I think the guy who did Manchu Boxer, the first one, directed The Dead and the Deadly from '82, which is another Sammo Hung kind of comedy, supernatural horror kind of film, which is really fun. But it's so hard. He's great in the second and third one, Paper Marriage and Shanghai. Sammo could do no wrong. But recommend the set. They all look really good, and Manchu and Paper Marriage, I think, both have English dubs on there as well. And there's an extended version of the Shanghai in the third disc too. So yep. All right, let's get into those 1983 movies.
I have returned.
Okay. Show me.
Where is the music now? The sound of laughter. There was never laughter.
Like?
What's what like?
Screwing a psycho.
What the fuck was that?
It's gone.
Guy blows dead dogs. Just lay it in there.
Eat shit and die, Ricky!
Eat shit and live, Bill.
Yeah, Bill, he's a little wet.
31. 32. 32. Year of a man's prime, loved by many women. He might still learn to swim. 32. Going. Gone.
The kid was cut in half, Arnie. They had to scrape his legs up with a shovel.
Well, isn't that what you're supposed to do with shit? Scrape it up with a little shovel?
One final moment of revenge.
Wondering what's real. All of it is real.
You want to see something really scary?
You bet.
Really?
Yeah.
Get the video, Joe! Long live the new flesh!
No choice but to kill the son of a bitch.
Living one's entire life in a state of fear. It is all I have ever known. Fear.
Are you ready?
Okay, go ahead. What are you doing?
Okay, this is a wild one here. I've covered Mausoleum before on my channel. This is a movie that, was hard to find for years until Vinegar Syndrome put out a great Blu-ray. Here's that Blu-ray. Wild, weird, crazy movie here. Special effects by John Carl Buechler, and you can tell, and I mean that as a compliment, also art direction by Robert Burns, who was all over the place in the early 80s. He would direct his first movie, Mongrel, on his only film in Mongrel, but he did the, set, worked on, of course, Hills Have Rise and stuff in 77. But you see his name pop up so many times. I think did Dogs of Hell too, the set art direction. At that time, he just was working very prolifically in a lot of horror films for that short period of time. But I guess the art direction's pretty good in this one. This is a weird, bizarre film. The title Mausoleum was originally, Tom McLaughlin's movie One Dark Night, and then I think due to this movie, making of it and whatnot, they changed the title to One Dark Night so they wouldn't be confused here. I think one of the biggest scenes in here, the one thing that stands out, infamous scenes, is that one of the murders or kills is shot in the mall. That kind of famous mall in California where, Commando is shot as well, and I think Chopping Mall. But it's definitely a huge scene shot in there. Now, the thing that stands out is the gore effects in here. There's a couple really gnarly kills in here, including Evil Breast, a munching breast. But the character, it opens up kind of in a ridiculous way. This young girl's mother dies, and she's in the cemetery, and her aunt's going to take care of her, and she starts having a fit, runs into the mausoleum, and she's kind of basically possessed, right, by this green light, and nothing's ever the same. And we kind of fast forward now, she's rich and she's married to a handsome guy, and she has pretty much everything. She has a gardener, a maid, all this kind of stuff like that, but something's a little off, and what they thought for years was psychological issues turns out to be possession. It's one of these hilarious things where their last name is Nomad. It's demon spelled backwards. Come on, Troll 2. Nilbog, fucking goblin spelled backwards. That's so murder, Shining. The Watcher in the Woods does it too. That shit's so silly. After you see it once, you're just like, are we doing that still? But it's funny. So her name is spelled backwards. Of course, Demon. It's Demon backwards is her name. But it starts off, and she's kind of just struggling before she starts getting possessed and kind of ripping people apart. The actress who plays the lead in here, Bobby Brisci, I'm not sure how to say her name. She's in Ghoulies. She's the Temptress, and she's super memorable in this movie. They say she's only 30, and I'm not trying to be rude because she looks great if she's 30 or 40, but there's no way she's 30 in this. Like, I looked it up and she was like 40, and I was like, yeah, that's more like it. She's more like my age. There's no way she's 30 in this. But so what happens is, of course, she starts killing people that start to ask about the demon thing, and the doctor gets involved from her past. And what we have is a couple really memorable bloodbaths. There's some things that stand out that I think are fun because, one time the maid sees something supernatural. She's like, I'm gone. I'm leaving, which I always thought was refreshing. But I don't have all that much to say about Mausoleum except that there's plenty of bright green lights. There's plenty of gore and gooiness. There's plenty of silly melodrama. And overall, I think Mausoleum is a fun 1983 possession horror film that packs in the gore, has some cool, memorable moments, and I think that most people will not be disappointed by it. I never was. I enjoyed it. As far as the special features, we only have Making Monsters, a video interview with special effects artist John Carl Buechler, which kind of bums me out because there would have been a little bit more on here and whatnot. But fun movie, recommended. Check out Mausoleum from 1983 if you've never seen it. Okay, the next one here is from 1983 as well, and this is Amityville 3D. This is from the Scream Factory box set here. That's right, the Scream Factory disc. We still got Amityville 2 and 3, not on any special edition. I'd really like to see 2 get a nice one. But here we are talking about Amityville 3. Still filmed, I believe, in Mexico by the De Laurentiis people. And this is actually directed by Richard Fleischer, which is insane to me because he directed Conan the Destroyer, Mr. Majestic, and like 50 other movies that are probably better than Amityville 3D. So this has a nice little cast in here. Has Tony Roberts from Popcorn, has Lori Loughlin from New Kids, has Robert Joy from Land of the Dead and The Dark Half and numerous other films. Meg Ryan has an early role in here. I know I'm probably forgetting somebody else here. So it's got a nice little cast in here. But Amityville 3D is really kind of an uneventful movie. They recreated like the house on sets and stuff, and it looks really good. But what we have here in the very beginning, we have Candy Clark too from Q, where she plays Michael Moriarty's girlfriend in that. She's pretty decent in this too. She's better in Q, but Q's a better movie. But so what we have here is, of course, her Candy Clark and Tony Roberts, are kind of like, trying to bust this investigation of these scammers that are renting out the Amityville house and kind of pulling these kind of fast one seances and whatnot. So they kind of expose them, and it kind of leads to Tony Roberts being like, maybe I'll buy this house. So he ends up buying the Amityville house. He's going through a divorce. His daughter's Lori Loughlin. His wife's not happy about him buying the house. But he ends up moving in, and he's, purposely obtuse, where he doesn't buy anything that anyone else says about the house is evil and whatnot. He doesn't really notice anything. Of course, the hole in the ground, the well in the ground, is still fucking evil, just like parts 1 and 2, whatever. The basement has something evil source about it, and people start showing up. The flies are there. Of course, people get, not that many people die, 2 or 3, and weird kind of tragic accidents. Where at first they appear to be kind of standard heart attack and then car accident, but by the end of it, you kind of can't deny it. The problem with Amityville 3, of course, it's a 3D movie, so it's kind of carrying on that thing from 82. We had Parasite and Friday the 13th Part 3 in 3D, so now we have like Jaws 3D, we have Amityville in 3D, but we have Dogs of Hell in 3D, Earl Osby movie. So like we have things that were like, and there's nothing really great in 3D. I think that Candy Clark said that they kind of ditched it or something along those lines. It was too dark, it didn't look great, and they just released it in 2D. I'm not sure on that. That's the only special feature on here is an interview with Candy Clark. She said she loved Richard Fleischer, and that's basically all she kind of pulled away from it. But the movie really doesn't pick up until the last act, and we kind of see the monster coming out of the well, which is cool and fun and memorable, and we have some chaotic moments, but it just turns into kind of a rip of Poltergeist at the very end, with all the scientists trying to figure out what the hell's going on. But that part's all fun when we kind of have the house falling apart and people getting hit. I don't know how the fucking house still stands after part 2, and after part 3, but it's there for Amityville, The Evil Escapes. But the weird thing about the Amityville movies is none of them are real sequels except the remake, right? Or in the same franchise, because they didn't really have the same rights. They couldn't say the Amityville Horror, but they're just Amityville 3D, Amityville Possession, Amityville Evil Escapes. So that's a weird kind of franchise. So when people are like, there's like 40 movies in that franchise, they're not even in the fucking franchise. There's not really anything in the franchise. But it's just an odd franchise, an odd kind of thing. And the whole story is just like, the trailer would suggest they're like, people can't stay away from the Amityville. Like, the trailer suggests that it's kind of in it for the money. I don't think the acting's horrible. I think the cast is probably one of the stronger points in the movie, but there's really just nothing. It's really kind of just a non-event movie until the very end, and then by then you're just like, I don't care anymore. It's not horrible, it's not great, it's not a good movie, it's not a bad movie, it's just there. Amityville 3D is just kind of there. It could have been a lot better, and it's kind of shocking that Richard Fleischer did it, but he was very much a journeyman director in a lot of ways, and sometimes they're great, sometimes they're not, but it is what it is. I wouldn't really give a strong high recommend to Conan the Destroyer either, although it's probably about as good as this. Not bad, but not great. And I would put this kind of in the same ballpark. The Amityville 3D is not great, but it's up to you. No real special features except the interview with Candy Clark, but yeah, that's that. Okay, the Patreon pick here is Born to Win from 1971. This is a Fun City Editions. And this movie stars George Segal and Karen Black. It's got small roles, of course, by, I wouldn't say small role, by Hector Elizondo and Robert De Niro, Burt Young. Also, their roles are a little bit smaller, definitely before they're kind of big, actors. But, Hector Elizondo, I remember from this time from Taking a Pelham 1, 2, 3, and he's particularly mean as hell in that movie. He kind of carries that same energy here. This one's an interesting one, New York film about drug addiction, but it's got a dark kind of comedy element about it. George Segal's a kind of an interesting actor that I haven't seen as much stuff as I'd like to about him, but he's one of these actors from like the 70s, and this movie could only be made in the 70s with this kind of character in here, where he is a drug addicted kind of guy, but he has a lot of charisma and he's likable, but also despicable at the same time. A very gray 70s character, interesting character for sure, but he's basically got himself in a lot of trouble. He's always fiending for a hit, and he's always like mouthing off and everything like that, and his wife has got pushed into prostitution by Hector Elizondo, who's a drug dealer, and he is kind of just traveling around with his buddy looking for the next fix, and he ends up trying to steal his car and running into Karen Black. And Karen Black is another one of these actors that's just perfect for the 70s, although she had a huge career later on. When you see her, and she's kind of the only one that can play these kind of characters. When I see her like in Day of the Locust or Cisco Pike, I don't know how to explain it. Which Cisco Pike's a lot like this movie, same year and everything. But she just is this weird character that if you were like, well, why is she doing this or why is she doing that? It's like she just has to kind of go along for the ride. She has to be kind of involved with this area. She's just somebody that's of interest. I don't know how to say this, but she just somehow encapsulates that 70s kind of character where there's a reasoning is mostly psychological, and it makes sense when you watch it. Somehow she is so good at her craft that she convinces you that she's going to go with this junkie, and you're like, okay, I guess not. And George Segal is a character that is also despicable in so many ways on paper, but when you see him on screen, he's also interesting and captivating. And I don't know, and a lot of the movie lies within their performances. Also, how New York's filmed and whatnot, and seeing the locations and seeing the story unfold. It's a pretty interesting downbeat movie, although comedic at the same time, which probably alienates a lot of its audience. From what I understood, the commentary, the movie didn't do very well, and I guess I can understand that. But rewatching it now through these eyes, I'm like, oh, this is an interesting kind of slice of 70s kind of gritty movies here. De Niro plays a cop, and he's a prick. And the 70s cops are definitely these kind of big pricks here, that they would just kind of frame people and do whatever it took to get what they wanted. And De Niro fits this role pretty well. He does a good job. Burt Young has a tiny role, but he's memorable as kind of a goon. I think this is a good film. I think this is a dark film. I think that it's one of these ones that can drive you crazy when you want a character to do a certain thing. I think the commentary on The Born to Win is also pretty interesting. And it's just one of these movies that I don't necessarily know how to explain it. It's just a slice of life movie where it follows this drug addicted kind of guy, and you're rooting for him, although you don't even know why you're rooting for him. You just basically don't want the people he's around to get hurt either. A lot of interesting, funny characters and funny moments, but also dark moments and just kind of gritty stuff and whatnot. And it takes the actors and the directors and all the people involved to kind of, and the time frame to kind of, lightning in a bottle moment, I guess you'd say. But the director, Ivan Passer, he did Cutter's Way in the early 80s, which is getting a 4K from Radiance Films, which was pretty cool. But yeah, so like, as far as I'm concerned with this, I did enjoy it. I did like it. And it was nice to see George Segal and Karen Black in roles that I think are kind of, I don't know how you can do these kind of movies like this or have these kind of characters. I think it's kind of a lost art to have that kind of gray character, morally kind of ambiguous character who's not necessarily a good guy or bad guy, but interesting nonetheless. And the 70s kind of portrayed them as in a weird, realistic way where you could have these kind of offbeat characters like that. The commentary is by writer Jason Bailey and filmmaker Michael Hall of Fun City Cinema Podcast, and they definitely kind of point that kind of stuff out here, and they do a good job talking about United Artists and the director and quotes from the critics and whatnot. But yeah, I overall enjoyed this one. Good cast, good interesting 70s movie. Fun City always puts out interesting stuff, but I would recommend that. Good Patreon pick. Yeah, check it out. All right, guys, let's get in these questions, comments, and concerns. What is that? The End of Time Travel. Okay, I did not like Keeper. It was a CG monsters, but damn, I forgive Oz just because he made one of my faves, Gretel and Hansel. What the Flick? I haven't seen Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 1, 2, or 3 in years, but even as a kid, I hated the lame-ass Super Shredder fight and defeat. Yeah, it sucks. I've never seen Suffer Little Children, but I've been curious about it for quite some time. I like the title and even used it as a title for one of the songs before I recorded the song and retitled it to Who Could Kill a Child, and that movie I have seen. Thanks for another video, man. Who Can Kill a Child's a great movie. Nick from Flanders. I agree. Jess Franco's Dracula is far from the worst adaptation. Budget constraints seem to be in the main issue. I think it's a good movie. I think people hating. A fate reserved for many Harry Allen Towers movies. As to Luc Besson's Dracula, their views aren't positive. I know that much, with many claiming it's just a rehash of Francis Ford Coppola's version, which I adore fiercely. It would appear that Mr. Besson's desire to work with Caleb Landry Jones again overrode his common sense and good taste. I started that Dracula movie, and the acting was horrible. Maybe it gets better. I don't know. I just was not watching a 2-hour movie with that kind of acting. Aside from the goofy moments in part 2, I was so in love with the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Heroes in a Hard Shell, right? I hope I'll get to add this set to the collection. I'm curious to see the 4K version of Greg Arki's Mysterious Skin 2, his best and most serious film, feature according to most critics. I had the DVD, was lucky enough to score the Blu-ray back in 2015. Most of the cast did a little retrospective back then. R.I.P. Michelle Trachtenberg. Yeah, I remember reading she passed. That's unfortunate. Questions. Who is the best Dracula? Christopher Lee. Duh. Are you excited about Mr. Araki's upcoming I Want Your Sex, featuring the likes of Johnny Knoxville and Margaret Cho? I'll watch it. I don't know if I'm excited. I didn't know about it. I watched a lot of his movies from that time period and enjoyed them, but I don't keep up on him like I should. Is The Antwerp Killer the worst Belgian horror movie ever made? Worst one I've seen. The father and son who made it seem to think so. They tried to destroy all existing copies themselves. Till next time, God willing, enjoy Brotherhood of the Wolf on 4K. I sure did. R.I.P. Emily Denliki. I can't say that last name. Noble Ruben Helk podcast. Early 90s was this fun, weird era where movies advertised for kids often had some darker tones in them. I remember seeing Batman Returns and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles catching so much flack for concerned parents group because the movies didn't feel like Saturday morning cartoons. LOL. Yes. Gordon Liu playing the Palme, I was full circle moment because he actually played characters who battled Palme in some of the Shaw Brothers movies. That is great. Mike Moore. Yes, I had basically the same story. Grew up watching the Turtles. Remember having the action figures. Was my favorite cartoon when I was 7 or 8, but have never went back and revisiting anything with them. Weird how that happens. LOL. Yeah, it is weird. Like, I was obsessed with the Turtles, and then I'm like, man, I haven't seen the Turtles in 20 years. I collected this, hated the monkey, and since people are not impressed with Keeper, I guess I'm done with Perkins. I mean, I'm never going to be done with anybody, but maybe just approach them a little bit more carefully, I guess. Irish Steve, 0.57 to time. Funny how the Arrow color strips look like the Turtles. Hank Curton. I recently started investigating Nazi exploitation films. I've seen Ilsa and Ceylon Kitty and liked both for different reasons. Ceylon Kitty had some class to its style. Do you consider it Nazi exploitation? You know what? I don't think I've ever seen Ceylon Kitty. Now, some people consider even Sallow Nazi exploitation, but it's more like just a kind of fascism. I don't know. I'll have to give it a spin. That and Night Porter I both want to watch, and The Damned, the kind of the early ones here. But Ilsa's 100% Nazi exploitation. I've seen most of the Italian ones that were spawned by Ceylon Kitty, probably like 5 or 6, maybe at least. But then we have Way Up Dude, and maybe 3 or 4. They all bleed together on those Nazi exploitation movies from 76, 77. Way Up Dude. Hand peak waving thumbs up. Thank you. Ilk Vomit 88. Ken Scott, who is in the Raphael suit, is the lead in the best Karate Kid knockoff movie of all time, Showdown 93, with Billy Blanks in the Mr. Miyagi role as an absolutely unhinged Patrick Kilpatrick as the villainous evil sensei. If my memory serves me correct, you reviewed that movie a while back. I absolutely did. I remember Ken Scott. And Patrick Kilpatrick is fucking hilarious in that movie. I love him. He's a great goon. He's one of my favorite baddies in a movie, along with like Nicholas Worth or somebody like that, or Brian Thompson, Michael Ironson. When they pop up, you're like, yeah, now we're in some good. Sammo Christ. I remember you mentioned Mysterious Skin somewhere maybe a decade ago, but I went into thinking it was going to be an alien abduction movie. Was I in for a surprise? The aliens were just repressed trauma the whole time. Glad that I saw it, and impactful is the right way to put it. It's been a long time and I need a rewatch. Someone else I know saw it, compared the feeling of leaving after it ended to walking out of a car crash. This was where I heard them band Slow Dive for the first time, but I was young and not yet ready for that music yet. When I got into that band later by chance, my mind was blown that I had heard it first. Highly recommend Slow Drive and their album, what is that? Soulaki? Anyway, even if it was a Patreon pick, thank you for covering it. It's a big tough watch, but well worth it. Was wondering for the longest time how you felt about that one. I absolutely love it. See, when some people pick a Patreon movie I love covering it. You know, sometimes I get so caught up watching the new releases or something I'm doing something else, I have to watch it. But, you know, I love almost all movies for the most part. Gray Nunez gives me a smiley face. Thank you. I guess we're going to get to this monstrous update here. Oh, boy. I was hoping the other 6 movies would come so I didn't have to do this, but it's a big update. It's a big one I had in a long time because of the sales on Black Friday and whatnot. But yeah, let's get into it. Okay, here's the big update. First up, we'll start with some Vinegar Syndrome stuff. Behind the Green Door, Mitchell Brothers presents here, porno film. I do order the porno films when they are kind of like, I guess, cult-oriented or horror-oriented or sound pretty interesting. And, of course, this is a classic, so I grabbed this one. I've actually never seen it, so. Then we also have the Stendhal Syndrome, one of my favorite Dario films. I think it's underrated. I love it. You know, when I say favorite, it's just like, I don't know where it ranks, but it's in the top 10 for me. I know that Dario has a lot of movies, but I think this one's kind of underappreciated, and I'm sure it has some cool new features on there that I'm excited to check out. We have Timecrimes, which is a pretty popular movie here. Those were both 4Ks. I mean, Stendhal was definitely a 4K, and Timecrimes here, which is a movie that I've never seen. I hear lots of great things about it, so look forward to checking it out. I probably bought the thing 2 or 3 times, but never seen it. That's how it goes. And then we have Shaw Films here. This is, what is this, VSA 61 here. Shaw Exploitation Volume 2, Descendants of the Sun. Not too familiar with this one, but it definitely looks like early 80s Shaw fantasy wuxia style stuff, which I love. So very cool. Then we have Blue City, another VSA, if I'm not mistaken. Judd Nelson, Alan Sheedy. Don't know much about this one. Looks like Paul Winfield on the cover and David Caruso. So if anybody's seen this one, let me know. Not too familiar with it, but I've been collecting the VSA line for a while. So. Troll 2, absolutely ridiculous movie here, 4K, of course, Claudia Forgazzo, infamously known as the best bad movie ever. I don't know about all that, but it is fun, it is goofy, it is horrible, but it does have some fun special effects. Weird, bizarre film for sure, Troll 2. Definitely a cult item. Then And we have the adult version of Jekyll and Hyde. Never seen this one. Heard it in passing. I think was this one one of the Something Weird DVDs out there, Blu-rays, DVDs. And then we have the Erotic Adventures of Zorro. So very cool. Then we have, of course, the Hisayasu Sato Volume 2, the films of Hisayasu Sato. Gotta love that from the Pink Label. It has an aria on gazes, and love minus zero equal infinity, which I love. That's a great film. Very challenging movie, too. Highly recommended. If you guys have not seen any Sato movies, I would recommend picking up the first set. I think it's more approachable than Love Minus Zero Equal Infinity. Here's a beaut here. The Shaw Scares Volume 1. Very, very cool. Sex Beyond the Grave from 84. Hell Has No Boundary from 82. Great movie. And Haunted Tales from 1980. Another fun anthology. One of the films being directed by the director of Men Behind the Sun. But I can't wait to watch Sex Beyond the Grave for 84. I've not seen that one. But Hell Has No Boundary is a great one. Underrated Shaw Brother movie that I love from 82. Good stuff. Very cool they're doing this. Look forward to the other ones as well. Then we have Garbage Pail Kids, the movie. Now, normally I don't buy all those. I didn't buy like Mac and Me because that's just not my jam. But Garbage Pail Kids is one of those movies that I've always enjoyed. I know it's not a great movie. I collected the cards as a kid. But it's just an odd movie, and I do enjoy it. Wendy Winston. It's such a stupid movie. There's Wendy Winston. Gracer, I'll check it out, dude. This movie is so weird, so bizarre. And what the fuck was Topps Chewing Gum thinking, putting all the money into the Garbage Pail Kids? What else do we have here? Candle for the Devil, 4K here. New sub-label from Vinegar Syndrome, Spanish horror film. Then we got their One, which is kind of an odd kind of thing here. What was this supposed to be? 15 reels of film make up the contents of this release. As of November 28th, 2025, Vinegar Syndrome Archive contains 40,359 reels of film. It sounds almost like the opening, like a Cannibal Holocaust or something like that. This is interesting. I'm definitely curious to see what's in it. Then we have Jess Franco's Doriana Gray. There's a tit, cartoon tit. Hopefully it doesn't get flagged or anything like that because it's educational here. It's of course got Lena Romay in there, as it should, for Jesse Franco. Chain Reaction, an Australian flick, I think from the early 80s. I don't think I've ever seen this one. I know my friend Moods definitely has seen Chain Reaction, but looks cool, looks fun. I think it's 1980. Psychotronic Overload. This is a Saturn's Core. No, this is VHS Shitfest. Sometimes I confuse them. Looked like an odd one. He dreams of killing people. Okay, who doesn't? Come on, that's so easy. But no, this is looks like an odd one. And then we have Blood Brothers, and I've heard of these. These are like short films. I can't remember the Mike Diana film collection, and I had heard these are real wild and real weird, so I'm glad to have these all together on a disc. I will buy stuff like that. Like they had that Fabio Solinero set that they put out not too long ago. Here's a couple imports I got. Watcher in the Attic from 88 Films, the Japanese line here, the Pinky movies. These look pretty good. And then we have Woods Are Wet, another Pinky film. Love the Japanese Nikatsu erotic films. Oh, we have the 4K of Murder Set Pieces. Nick Palumbo. This movie is brutal and crazy. And this is the first time. This is like the director's cut here, but it's supposedly like a brand new 4K scan from the only existing 35mm with director-approved HDR color. Includes both theatrical cuts and director's cut. Theatrical cut is 105 minutes. So there was like a Spanish DVD that supposedly had that theatrical cut on there, I believe. But it was all shaky and everything, so I think this is the first time it's been presented properly. And the theatrical cut is not the cut shitty version that was in the video store. So then we have High Noon on 4K. Got my Kino stuff coming in here. Gotta love Kino. Classic Western. There we go. We got Rampage on 4K, the William Friedkin movie. What a great release from them. Both versions on here. This is an interesting movie. I don't know if many people have seen it, but you got, of course, Sean Bean in there. Love Sean Bean. Art LaFleur was in this too, if I remember correctly. It's been a long time, but both versions on there. He had William Friedkin had a change of heart how he believed about the death penalty. So interested in rewatching those. I've only seen one version. We have Dust Devil here, classic from Richard Stanley. Pretty good flick for sure. South African one. Yeah, we got two versions of this movie too. Never thought this was going to get a Blu-ray or 4K or anything stateside. I have the old DVD special edition from Subversive. Then we have Burn Witch Burn, which I had, but this is I guess a new master picture here, so and it was dirt cheap on Amazon, so I ended up grabbing it. Special edition here, Burn Witch Burn. Night of the Eagle, I believe it's the AK name. Dan Curtis here, Late Night Mysteries. Gotta love Dan Curtis, TV horror god here. And then we have what here, The Shadow. This is introductions of all 4 films, these TV movies here. Shadow of Fear, The Invasion of Carol Enders, Come Die With Me, Nightmare on 43 Hillcrest. So yeah, there we go, cool stuff. Then we have Dead of Night, which I believe is the remake of somewhat Dan Curtis remake, a TV remake of the classic anthology, if I'm not mistaken. Looks like Patrick Macnee on the back there. I don't know much about this one. I've never seen it for sure. Ed Begley Jr., Joan Hackett, yeah, Patrick Macnee. Nice little cast in there for sure. Definitely going to check that out. Then we got Dan Curtis set here, Classic Monsters. I got Jack Palance on there. This, I don't know how many movies are on here, but they released these on DVD from MPI. I remember back in the day. I'm trying to read through the camera lens, which is not 100% easy, guys, so I will apologize to that. But, so we got 3 movies here. I think we got, what, Dracula, Frankenstein, and then we got Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Very cool. Then, of course, we have Death Packs a Suitcase, a Brian Edgar Wallace movie here, filmed by Jess Franco. Very cool here. If you know anything about the Brian Edgar Wallace films, if you watch the Dr. Mabuse set and listen to the features, they talk a lot about that there. Then we have Posse here, Kurt Douglas and Bruce Dern. Love my westerns. Bo Hopkins, James Stacy. Oh, James Stacy, who lost his leg and arm. He's in Something Wicked This Way Comes, as well as Double Exposure. But yeah, this looks like a really good western. Never seen it. Repossessed, silly movie. I've not seen it since I was a kid. Forgotten Ed Beatty was even in it. Repossessed. Leslie Nielsen, and of course, Linda Blair. Super silly movie. I definitely will rewatch that. Monkey Shines, 4K. Good deal on this one. George Romero, I wouldn't say classic, but not a bad film either. Kind of underrated a little bit, but solid movie on 4K. Grab that. Then we have my Hamilton book order. Pretty cheap stuff here. Good movies for cheap prices. Deadly Outlaw Rika. Sorry, this is a Takashi Miike movie, if I'm not mistaken. Did not know much about this one, but I'm going to buy the Takashi Miike movie for $7 when I see it. Then we got Black Belt here. Roger Corman presents Don the Dragon Wilson, the greatest kickboxer of all time. Okay. But, yeah, these look fun. Martial arts movies. These are ones I probably rented as a kid and vaguely remember. Blood Fist, Don the Dragon Wilson again. Blow by Blow, the most realistic kickboxing film ever made. It looks like Billy Blank's on the back there, too. And then we got Escape to Athena and March or Die. Yeah, nice little kind of, ensemble cast here in these war kind of spy adventure movies, if I'm not mistaken. This one's actually directed by George P. Cosmatos. It's got fucking Telly Savalas and Roger Moore and Elliot Gould. It looks fun. This one's got Gene Hackman in it, so good stuff. And then we have Shadow Fist Hunter. It's a Dark Sky. If I can push out the slipcover. This one I don't know much about, but looks fun. And then last, but certainly not least, maybe in price it was least, but we have Last Rites with Tom Berenger and I don't know who else is in this. Daphne Zuniga, tough name to say there, but looks like Adrian Paul on the back there too. And this I saw as a kid. I think I had a VHS of it, but it's been years and years and years. But that is the last one. Still have some stuff coming. Hopefully it comes pretty soon, but it'll be in next week's video, I think, for sure. All right, guys, thank you very much for watching, and as always, have a good one.